All right, welcome back to Daily Stand-Up. I think it's been a couple weeks, not gonna lie. It's been real busy, looking to get back into it. Obviously, from the new year, got a lot of content, and we got to make a lot of progress on this. So where I am at currently is I am actively working on the prototype backend queue design number 1. So I'm going to drag that into in progress. You should have seen a video about RabbitMQ. I literally just last night just got the key piece of communication from my one microservice to my other microservice using RabbitMQ and mass transit. So basically I have the decoupled microservice for my front end. Now I can send messages to my one Engines API microservice. I only have the 2, and when I add more, I'm just going to tack them onto that same message bus. So I think this system should work for what we need. Obviously, like I said, I'm still going through the prototyping phase. This is the first prototype phase, but I really like what I'm seeing so far. I have a lot of questions I still need answered about about message brokers itself, specifically RabbitMQ. So I have to get a lot of those questions answered. I've been trying to take some notes. I have a document full of questions and challenges I've had, solutions I've found, and other things like that. So when I get that document together, more finalized, honestly, I'm gonna make a video to go through every piece of that, because I think it'd be helpful just to see, because a lot of times you'll see an implementation of a complex system like a message broker, and you'll see it and somebody does it first try and be like, oh, it should be easy. Then you go and implement it yourself and you run into all these roadblocks and everything like that, and then you're like, I wish there was a little more realistic look. So I'm hoping to offer a realistic look as to implementation for your own project and what that will look like. So how I got here, as part of my progress update for my prototype number 1, because I still have my prototype number 2 for my backend data pipeline in progress. I'm still working on that, but as part of that, I needed to perform load testing against that pipeline to discover flaws and things like that. Also, I think that just did a thumbs up on my video. So here we are. So I can officially move my JMeter testing over to done, because we made 2 videos now showing my results from just load testing, just my super rough prototype of my data pipeline. And we saw some pitfalls. We saw some real numbers of just me load testing on my local machine. So I'm going to just reference, I'm just going to say testing complete. And then because we did do it in a video, I'm just going to say reference YouTube videos, I guess. I can be kind of brief with this because we already made a lot of content. So let's go ahead and save that. And then let's move that over to done officially. And I think that is okay for now, because again, that's just the first round of load testing. We will have a second round, but we just don't have a ticket for that yet. So that revealed some pitfalls in my data pipeline design, which led me to explore message brokers, which kind of stems into this prototype of message RabbitMQ. And you could argue that this is part of still the prototype backend data pipeline, but I would say it's really not, because this is more of an architecture decision, whereas a data pipeline is a specific implementation detail in a single microservice. So I think that the queue design, or the message broker has to precede the data pipeline. So I think that's kind of where I'm at. So I think I might need to make a new column, because this one's technically paused, right, until I do my queue design. I don't know. I'm not going to worry about it, but we know where we're at. So I'm just going to post some updates. So of this, so I have a functional prototype of RabbitMQ working across microservices, if I can spell anything. All right, so basically what I have, this is my front end, RabbitMQ, and to my engine API. So that's kind of the flow. Again, seen videos of that, so I think I've covered that on the channel, so you can go back and look at those updates. But that is all the updates I have really for now. And then I'll just put what I still need to do is I need to really flesh out the specifics of publish versus send, and what is going to work in my case. Message brokers have a concept of publishing versus sending a message, so I just have to see truly what the differences are, and then apply that to my specific context. I also need to design how I am going to receive messages, like basically or maybe not receive, but maybe perhaps notified of message consumption, and I'm just going to put in parentheses completion. Basically what I mean by that is my front end is going to be running this engine simulator. It's going to be sending data off to now this message broker at a very, very high rate, so a ton of data. I don't know how many data points yet, but probably in the thousands a minute, sending data points off to my message broker. That is going to be then returned. Those messages are going to be consumed by my engine API microservice, and I would like to be notified when not all messages, but a portion of those messages have been handled, right? Have been processed by my API, whatever logic that is going to do. I just want a notification of completion. I don't need to send any data back. I'm not returning like any JSON objects or anything like that. I really just want to be notified, like, hey, Engine's API is doing what it needs to be doing. Send me back like a, update, completion, progress, whatever it is. So that's the part I need to figure out. So once I figure out that direction of communication from the receiving or the consuming API back to the sending API, I think that'll put me in a really good spot. So I need to figure that out still. I'm trying to think what else. I have some more things on the document, but I'm going to leave it like this for now, because those are kind of big, right? Those are big topics, and it'll give us enough work to continue on this prototype for now. So that's where I'm at. The to-do column is, I don't think we had an updated architecture meeting. I posted a video, I guess you could say it's an architecture meeting, but it's kind of more implementation detail heavy rather than like system design. So I might do a formal architecture meeting once I kind of have that communication, again, what I just said, from the consuming back to the publishing. Once I have that figured out, as well as some like more general specifics of RabbitMQ figured out, like I want to get really good at this system. So once I have that kind of more squared away, I think we'll come back and I'll actually make a diagram of the architecture and everything. As far as everything else, I think that everything is in the right spot. And I foresee that work on RabbitMQ is probably going to take me could take me a few more weeks, to be completely honest with you. And I might stretch this out into like just extending this prototype 1 ticket. I might make it kind of like I might make another ticket to just continue this work because I did put it at a 3 point, so I think it's going to stem up to a 5. So I'll make another ticket to reflect that. I'm not going to change the estimate on this. But I'm glad I got a lot of progress done last night on this. I was a little worried that I wasn't going to be able to figure out the connection between the two microservices. And what I mean by that, and I think that this is a good thing to bring up right now, is because whenever I was looking up solutions to this problem of communicating between microservices, beyond just directly, obviously, because what I mean by communicating between microservices, prime example is like if you have my Docker Compose file has a MySQL image it uses, and it has the image from my application itself. I can just set variables for my MySQL connection that I can use in my my project itself, no problem. So that's like I can get connection that way through Docker Compose, but that's not really what I'm talking about. I'm more so talking about how do I communicate using a message broker, and that's where it got confusing for me because I didn't know that all the examples I saw, the microservices were always contained in the same solution. So it was using just like a mono repository pattern. And that's not really what I'm wanting to do. And I wanted the microservices to be completely independent and not really know anything about one another. So that way development's independent, deployment's independent. One microservice can have this kind of pipeline for deployment. This one can have another. This one can be written in this language. And that's kind of what I'm trying to achieve. And I want that, and also I want the repositories to be completely separate. That way you don't have to pull down the whole thing and do all that. So I don't want there to be any shared components or libraries, and that's what I'm doing here. So all the examples I saw they were always in the same solution, and they shared a common contracts folder, which basically just housed classes that the publishing and the consuming classes used. Because it seems like the way RabbitMQ works is that it registers, when you register your, I'm trying to think of how to word this. It's like you define a type, and it takes that namespace of the type in the class name and creates the exchange off of that. So whenever you send a message that is the same, matches that, it basically registers it, I think, behind the scenes to be like, okay, a message was published to this queue, and I have a consumer over here that is also looking for that type, so we can receive it inside that method, the consume method. And I didn't know that those could stretch between microservices outside of the same solution, and that's what I was stuck on because when I created a new solution for another microservice, I created the same type, but it didn't have the same namespace. So it wasn't, I'm like, okay, this is, I wasn't sure if this is going to work. And I was also confused. I was like, okay, do I just point that one to the same instance of RabbitMQ? But it's like, how does that know? So I was getting really confused because, again, just the write-ups I saw were always in the same solution. It's a lot easier to make a write-up if they are. So fortunately, I found some just articles, Stack Overflow articles, really, and showing somebody asked a question and somebody responded with it with a link to the documentation. But I looked through the documentation, and you could definitely miss it. Like, it was kind of like a subtle thing, at least in my opinion. So anyway, I'm glad I got that figured out. So that was kind of making me nervous. I'm like, can I even do this? I don't know. I mean, it makes sense, right? Like, but there's always like those weird things you run into. So yes, it does work. The other thing I ran into, I had to adjust the host name of RabbitMQ because I guess when you run it with Docker, you have to change it from localhost to an internal host Docker provides. I'm still looking at that because that seems like weird. I think I would have assumed that it would have still been localhost, but I don't know. So that's what those are like the small implementation details I'm still trying to square away. But that's where we're at. And that was a lot of detail, and I think that this is going to be the end of the stand-up. So I will see you all on the next one. Thanks.